I'm here with Walt Judas, the CEO of TIABC and a good friend of mine. So thank you, Walt, for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
Yeah, so obviously we're at your conference. This is my, I think, third or fourth time attending this conference. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's my favorite event. I go to a lot of events. It's a fantastic event.
Thank you.
So great job, first of all. So tell me a little bit about why you do this conference, why it matters for the BC tourism.
Well, for as long as I've been in the industry, there has been a conference that brings people together. And let's face it, our industry is very social. We like each other. We work together. It's good to see people in one setting.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoy each other's company, and there's some B2B relationships that can happen out of this. So a lot of it is the socializing and networking and a chance to put everybody in one venue. But also there's an education component to it. So we offer 20 workshops on a range of topics, from film tourism and marine tourism to AI to mental health or HR related issues, marketing, digital marketing, all kinds of things that would just take people from what level they're at today to that next level of education. We offer it in two tracks. One is a skills track, and one is really a knowledge track. And whatever level you're at, there's a workshop that you can participate in and learn from, and ideally take back and apply that in your place of business. There are plenary sessions too. That's where we bring everybody together. Sometimes it's a discussion about issues, and at this conference we talked about the impact of tariffs. We've talked about the new BC budget, what's happening in business in general, but also there are motivational speakers that can really give us lessons in life that we can apply in both a personal and professional context. And then the final thing, which we think is a highlight at the conference, is our awards gala, where we get to recognize the best of the best in our sector. And there are many great companies and individuals doing phenomenal work, and they often go unnoticed, or it's often overlooked. And this brings us together to celebrate those individuals who have been nominated, and many nominations come in different categories. And we can celebrate the winners and the nominees all together in one setting. And it's done with an Indigenous lens because it's hosted by our partners at Indigenous Tourism.
Yeah, it really is. And what I'll say is, it's interesting. Today's day was really about the plenary sessions, and I got to tell you, the hallways are empty when those sessions are happening. So really great content, I would think.
And we work so hard on that content. We have a program committee that helps to advise what's relevant for people. You don't want to run the same thing every year, albeit there are those that are important to people year after year, because there's always evolution, as you know, by the month in AI or by the week. And so there's always new things to learn. But what's really been heartwarming for me is we have the absolute perfect spring day. And at a lot of conferences you go to, skip out to enjoy the city. And perhaps there's some of that happening. But when I look around at all the plenary sessions and workshops, I've got a full complement. They're packed. And so that tells me that we're on the right track, that people want to learn, they want to grow, they want to participate. They really believe in the value that they're getting, and they're not taking advantage of visiting another city, although there's some of that. That's kind of off hours. But they're taking advantage of being together with their colleagues in this kind of environment.
And I think what I think you do really well in this conference is the way it's laid out in terms of it sort of starts with a half day, and then there's a full day, and then it ends with a half day. And I think that's really smart because it gives people the opportunity to socialize, go out and have a drink, see the city, also do the sessions. You don't feel like sometimes you go to a conference and it's like one day and you're packing it in, and you know what I mean, and it's so hectic. And so I kudos to you for, I think, the way you have it rolled out.
Thank you. We did try 2 full days, and that included all of the sessions and the opening reception, and then the next day, because we wanted to give people a chance to get home. We were in a more rural community in that case, but we found that, to your point, it didn't give people enough time to socialize and to connect. And so we built in each of our breaks are a half an hour, and then we've got some time over lunch and time between the opening reception and the dinner. We've purposely programmed it in such a way that people can get together. And even all those opportunities that we give, people still go out after the opening reception and go out after. And sometimes they're out till 2 a.m. because they don't see each other regularly.
Yeah, and that's great.
And as I mentioned earlier, we're such a social sector, and people just love being together. And lots of people have these deep relationships that are not merely years old; they're decades old. So that's part of the fun.
It is part of it, and I know of some people that were out till 2 a.m. yesterday, but they were here at 8 a.m.
They were here, probably having a nap now.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So awesome. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about policy. So your role, Walt, as the CEO of TIABC, is really you wear many hats, but sort of advocacy and policy is probably, I would say, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably the most important role you play on behalf of the tourism industry in BC. So what are some of the kind of top issues right now that are top of mind for the tourism industry?
Yeah, many. We speak with governments at all levels regularly, but mostly at the provincial level. Right now, obviously, people are very concerned about tariffs and how that might impact businesses. For some, they won't feel it at all. For others, it could be very serious. They have a lot of Americans as customers. I think there's a bit of a fear that if there's an anti-American sentiment, or if the borders start to thicken, or if President Trump decides Americans need to travel here at home as opposed to visiting other countries like Canada or British Columbia in particular, in our case, we're in trouble because many of our sectors rely exclusively on Americans. Now, what we've tried to do in that messaging is to convey to all levels of government, listen, don't necessarily promote Canadians to stay at home or not to travel to the U.S. Sure, we want to promote what's available in our own province, and we want to encourage people to travel within the province and support local businesses, etc., and take some of those bucket list trips that they may not have thought of here, but are available. So we want to do that, to be sure, but we don't want to say don't travel to the U.S. because if they reciprocate, as I say, we're in trouble. So tariffs is a big issue, but it's also an opportunity for us. Because we're an export sector, we can't tax people or tariff people who are traveling here. And so we have an opportunity to build new markets, to look at investment in new products and new services, to look at infrastructure. And that's part of my role is to convey those kinds of opportunities to government and serving on the Premier's task force on economic opportunities, et cetera, to try to protect British Columbia a bit. So that would be one issue, and that's obviously top of mind right now. But we have long-standing issues. We have them in the marine environment with things like whale watching regulations and the things that government wants to impose on the whale watchers, which would really kill not only that business, but tourism for a lot of coastal communities. We've got issues around land use and tenure security. There are many operators that are sitting on Crown land with significant development. They've got resorts or heli-ski operations or what have you, and they can't get a renewed tenure that allows them to borrow more money from banks to make even a further investment in infrastructure to bring those high yield visitors here. So tenures is a big issue for us, and I think we have to resolve that fairly quickly because there are operators on the precipice of deciding whether to expand or continue operations or pack it in. And that wouldn't help because that's really part of the experience that we sell in British Columbia. We've got major infrastructure issues, not only highways to improve, but things like airports and access around the province. You know, we don't have a bus system that connects communities. That's not only bad for visitors, but bad for locals who need to leave a small community and don't have access to an airplane or can't afford airline tickets and they don't have a car. So how do we get them to visit with family and friends or medical appointments, et cetera, et cetera? But also, you look at the BC ferry system. It's aging. The terminals need repair or upgrading, but the fleet, there are regular instances where ferries are out of commission for mechanical issues or what have you. And so we need new ferries. And the routes are getting busier. The traffic that travels between Vancouver Island, for example, and the lower mainland of British Columbia is growing every year, and it'll be at full capacity within a couple of years. So we need new ships. Regardless of whether we decommission the old ones, we need new ships. And so there's just one issue after another, but at the same time, opportunity. And we're as much about finding solutions to
Yeah.
some of those issues as we are presenting the opportunities to grow the visitor market. When you think of what's happening around communities or in communities around the province, some rely on the natural resource sector like forestry or mining or what have you. If you can't get a mine going for 7 to 15 years, it may put a lot of people out of work.
Mm-hmm.
Or if a forest company or a mill goes out of business, what are all those people doing for work? Tourism is a great springboard for a new career for somebody. And so, yeah, I could talk for 2 hours about the different issues in our province. At the same time, we are growing as an industry, and there are a lot of good things happening, and there are lots of very talented people that work in our industry that are highly skilled and professional and really believe passionately in tourism and are doing a terrific job of helping the visitor economy grow on an annual basis.
Yeah, and I get the sense that certainly the government in British Columbia is very tourism friendly, or at least they sort of do a lot of things. Now, it's one of those things, right? You know, there's always more that can be done, I suppose.
Yeah,
right?
and you know, they're in the latest budget, they supported the film sector with some tax credits and incentives. Well, we heard at the conference the launch of Cineventure, which is really about a deliberate way to promote film tourism. And the province would be supportive of that. In fact, the film sector is within the tourism ministry. Tourism, arts, culture, and sport also has film. So there are lots of synergies. We don't own a lot of policy within the tourism ministry for tourism. It's owned by different ministries, whether it's around land or the marine environment or sustainability, what have you, emergency management. All of those ministries would own policies that affect us.
Mm-hmm.
But there are those linkages that we're making. And our government has been, by and large, very supportive of tourism. But at the same time, I think they could stand to invest more in the sector. And we need to figure out ways to do that. We don't want to rely on the public purse necessarily. When you look at, for example, at Destination British Columbia, their budget is solely determined by the province on an annual basis.
Right.
It really hasn't grown in 10 years. Notwithstanding inflation, which since 2019 to now has gone up by 20%. So now you have a stagnant budget for the Crown Corporation that markets the destination. You've lost 20% of your buying power.
Right.
And so those kinds of things we would like to see within the province to change, to allow them to be even more supportive.
No, for sure. Yeah, and I think tourism is an interesting industry because really tourism is everything and everyone almost to some extent, right? So to your point about it's not just sort of what contained in one ministry from a policy perspective, it's sort of pretty broad. And at the same time, I think what you're talking about is pretty consistent with a lot of industries. And from what I hear is things just kind of like red tape and sort of, I think part of it, maybe you'll agree or disagree, I'll give you the opportunity, is part of it is supporting and helping, and part of it is just trying to get out of the way.
Well, that's what I hear from a lot of tourism operators. If you can't help us, just get out of the way.
Right.
And so there are regulations that need to be eased. You know, I was meeting with some agritourism farmers recently. These are small farmers, have properties that might be 5-10 acres, maybe a little bit larger than that. They can't exist on food production alone. They just don't have the capacity on the lands that they own. Plus, the growing season is pretty limited for certain crops, and they're not all building these great big greenhouses. But there are restrictions to the number of events they can do on their properties every year, or the types of events in some cases, or what's considered agritourism. Yet, these are events that drive visitation. Right? These are events that help them supplement their income every year so that they can actually grow flowers or produce or grow produce for people to eat and for them to be able to sell as part of their farming operation. They want to keep their farms first and foremost as farms, but they need help. So there are regulations there that need to be changed or at least eased. And let's not get in the way of these folks who are just average people that have adopted a lifestyle that is quite attractive, but they can't earn a living. And so they may end up losing it. And the last thing you want is somebody to take over a piece of property, put a few chickens out there because they're in the ALR, but build an enormous house and leave that property fallow. That's not what we want. There's a certain attractiveness to the agritourism sector. People love to be in the countryside and visit farms and buy honey and whatever other goods that might be retailed there, in addition to produce and flowers and all those wonderful things that farmers grow. But we need to give them that opportunity to do that and do things like weddings, farm to table weddings, and ease some of the restrictions about what has to be grown on the farm to allow that event to happen and so on.
Right.
So, it's things like that can be quite complicated, or they've been in place for a long, long time. But I don't think they're that difficult overall to be able to change.
A little bit of will.
Yeah, a little bit of will and a little bit of a belief that these are things that can help local communities because they create ancillary jobs. It's not only at the farm itself, but you're going to need other suppliers. You're going to need tables and chairs when you're renting a place out for a big function. You're going to need fuel. You're going to need whatever. And that's all purchased locally.
And that's really the value of tourism, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when you do tourism, everything else sort of expands as a result, which is amazing. Let's switch gears just for a quick second here. I want to just thank you, first of all, for being such an amazing partner for the Tourism AI Network. You were the first person I actually reached out to when I had this crazy idea. And honestly, you've said yes every time I've asked you about something, or I put some crazy idea in front of you. So first of all, thank you. So I feel really honored to be partnered with you on this initiative, and we're rolling out some training programs. I guess maybe I'd want to hear from you just in terms of, what was it about, I guess, that conversation in the tourism? Was it just good timing and good luck on my end? Sort of what led to you saying yes and us being where we are today?
Well, I think part of it's your charm.
Oh, wonderful.
No, thank you for reaching out, and I feel real honored that you did. Just the conversation that we had really intrigued me because you had a vision. You were gaining the knowledge on AI, and it was a brand new thing for most of us, even though we know it's been around for a long, long time. But you had a vision of helping the industry, and I didn't see you as in it for your own personal gain. Obviously, you have to make money. You've got a business to run and so on. But to me, it wasn't about that. You were here to serve an industry that was underserved, specifically on AI, and who had very little knowledge, but could use the tools that you teach about to their advantage, to grow their businesses and to gain more customers and do all the things that tourism operators really want to be successful in business. And you were saying, look, we can do this. We can help your sector. And here's how we might be able to do that. You were willing to explore ideas. You were willing to talk about strategy. You were willing to offer a partnership that to us made it quite simple. From our perspective, we want to be one step ahead, or at least meeting the industry's needs. And from what I had heard, even at this conference and just talking to people, there was that void. And you offered that good opportunity to fill that void. And certainly there was good timing to all of it. But I think it was really your skills, your knowledge, your ability to connect with people. And as a consequence of even presenting at the conference, there were lots of other folks that wanted to talk to you. And that to me demonstrated that there was a need. And that this was something we should pursue and continue to grow on behalf of the sector, because we know that in as much as it can be a scary proposition for people, particularly a small operator that may not think I've got the time to do this, ultimately it saves them time. It saves them money. They can focus their efforts on other parts of the business by using the tools that you provide and what you teach to make sure that they're successful and sustainable. So those were all things that really attracted me to the Tourism AI Network. And plus, we had already had a relationship, you being a key supplier for us in another avenue, and just knowing that and knowing how your company operates and the integrity that you run your business with was an important value for us.
I appreciate that a lot. One last question. I'd be curious about your AI journey. Where are you? Are you in an AI journey? Where are you in your AI journey? Unpack that and see where we can go to help you get to where you want to go.
Well, put it this way. I'm a big proponent and I'm a promoter, but I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And so my journey is limited, to be fair. My focus hasn't necessarily been on technology and tools and so on. I've been just so focused, whether it's on this conference or advocacy or what have you. I have not, to be fair, taken the time that I need. Having said that, you and I know are connecting in the coming weeks about opportunities for me to really learn and take advantage of some of the things that you offer and the things that you teach and the tools that are available, either paid or unpaid, to really ensure that I'm doing the best that I can for my members using the tools that are available so I can be more efficient in one area and allow me to do more work in another area, which is really about advocacy. So I would say I am still a rookie, but looking to become a veteran.
I like
in
that.
fairly short order.
I like that. And the good news, Walt, is actually, and I keep telling this to people in this conference, is that for a lot of people who are like you, and actually I grew up this way too, grew up analog, not necessarily digital. We got one over here who grew up digital, very different sort of approach to this whole thing. But just a little bit of training, I really feel I can get a lot of people there really quickly. So I'm really excited to work with you on that. And hopefully next year you'll say that I'm an AI wizard and it's helped me and life is good.
I'm looking forward to it as well. You know, I like a lot of people have my reservations. My vintage would tell you that. And you know, I have people in my household, some that are adopters and some that are really hesitant and scared about the AI world, which can be a very scary thing.
It can, absolutely.
But they're looking at it through one lens. They're not looking at it as a tool that can help them in their own journey, business or personal. They're looking at the scary things that they see online about generated videos and what have you. I think it's that safety perspective. They're stealing my personal information. They're going to use it for nefarious purposes or what have you. And so I'm trying to change the narrative even within my own household. Let's not be afraid of it. You don't have to fully embrace it, but let's not be afraid of it. Let's see what it can give us, and but it behooves us to learn more.
I think knowledge is power, right? So that's
exactly.
We'll end with that. So thank you, Walt. First of all, for the conversation and for the great partnership.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the partnership, and I appreciate your contribution to our industry.
Wonderful. Thanks.